All good things must come to an end, but what a way to go out. I'm John Reckon with my review, Tales from the Territories Mid-South, Bullets, Blades, and Bar Fights. Yes, Tales from the Territories has ended its 10-episode run. Can't wait to see what they do for Season 2. I really hope that we get a Season 2, and I hope we get Dark Side of the Ring Season 4 at least sometime next year. The summer, the fall, I don't care. Just give us Dark Side of the Ring Season 4. That being said, Tales from the Territories has been a mixed bag. The round table discussion panel format was a little bit weird. There were some really good stories told. There were some times where I think some particular episodes lost the plot, shall we say. This one was really goddamn good because it was just people telling stories. Yes, there were rib stories, there were great reenactments, but it was nice to learn a little bit more about Mid-South Wrestling. Now, some of this stuff has been talked about before, but the panel was JR, and man, JR was just really goddamn surly and funny, and man, I love just surly JR. He's just having so much fun. You kids, get off my lawn. You goddamn kids clustering up like quails. Good old JR. Anyway, Jake Roberts, who I'm amazed that Jake Roberts is still alive. I think he's amazed he's still alive. I mean, he's turned a corner, say that much, but Jesus. Anyway, Ted DiBiase, fresh off of fleecing more money from the citizens of Mississippi. That's fucking bullshit. That's why some people will just use religion to basically justify their goddamn greed and everything. Not everybody does, but Ted, man, just not a good look. And also Michael Hayes. It kind of makes sense why Michael Hayes would be there, the only member of the Freebirds still alive. Well, the good version of the Freebirds. You can count Jimmy Jam Garvin, but quite frankly, I don't. So yeah, Bill Watts' Mid-South territory. It went from Oklahoma to Arkansas to some people, well, basically from out of the country call Arkansas. No, it's Arkansas, just so you know. Louisiana, Mississippi, and they didn't really mention much about them running in Houston with Paul Bosch. I was a little bit surprised by that, but nevertheless, it's only like a 44, 45-minute episode. And he ruled it with an iron fist, and he made sure that you kept kayfabe alive. You were going to make your issues as personal and real as possible. You were going to bleed. You were going to pay the price. You were going to travel 3,000, 4,000, sometimes 5,000 miles a week. You would get paid well. You would learn from a man that learned under Eddie Graham and learned from so many other great minds and then applied that to the Mid-South Territory. And he took over that from Leroy McGuirk. More on Leroy McGuirk a little bit later. It was so great to see the old footage. I mean, you got to see a little bit of Paul Bosch. Didn't get to see much. I wish that more Houston wrestling footage was up on YouTube. But anyway, basically it was just the amount of talents that came through Mid-South. I mean, Andre the Giant, Terry Taylor, and many people. It would take forever to mention them. I mean, the amount of talents that came through Mid-South, whether they just stopped for a little bit, where they had a long stay there. They didn't even mention Dr. Dusty Williams. I was a little bit disappointed by that, but that's all right. JYD got hugely over in Mid-South. Bob Geigel, who, president of the NWA, said, hey, Bill, what are you doing? I mean, you're going to anger a lot of these old timers because, let's just say, a lot of racism. I'm not going to say Bill Watts is perfect either, by the way, with some, views you could, point to the whole thing of how Heyman had a falling out with WCW and perhaps Bill Watts' possible views on Heyman, let's just say without, getting into the possible discussion of breaking any NDA. I mean, it's a little bit too convenient, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, but he wanted to push JYD, and JYD was hugely over in Louisiana, especially New Orleans, which I know that's not how they say it, but I've watched too many goddamn movies and it pops in my head. But New Orleans, and also in Houston. He exploded in Houston, which really was bad for the cleanup crew. I kid. He really was popular in Houston. And it did the Superdome of Houston all over. Like, the Superdome shows, especially with JYD, were something else. The Freebirds had that hair cream thing that they did, and they beat up JYD. They were going to beat JYD and his partner, and they were going to take him out, and then they were going to take the hair off the tag partner, and JYD intervened, and they got the face cream in the eyes. It was inadvertent, and JYD's blind, and his daughter's going to be born. He can't see his daughter, and they talk about this one thing where Michael Hayes says, oh, they're doing a pre-tape, and the wife's got the daughter, and JYD says, oh, my daughter, dog, she's right here, and like over to the other side because he couldn't see, and he went to extreme lengths. Didn't go out all that much. Kept the blinds closed. Made sure to wear that, and then they were gonna, build. I think it was a cage match, a dog collar cage match, and dog collar was because JYD couldn't see, but he could find him because he was attached to the dog collar. And then he ripped off that eye patch. Huge pop. I think footage of that does exist somewhere. And big, big pop. Everybody just went nuts. It was insane. And JYD was hugely over. Him and Michael Hayes drew, I believe, the biggest gate in Mid-South history at the Superdome, which was almost beaten by the last Stampede in 1984. Not quite, but close enough. And, from there, JYD was a made man. Freebirds were hugely over. And then another edict from Bill Watts: if you fought a fan, or a fan picked a fight, if you got in a fight, you'd better win that goddamn thing, damn it, or otherwise you're fined or fired, likely fired, because you had to win the fight. And Duggan got his sunglasses, it cut up his face, and he had a hard time seeing the guy. And Jake Roberts is there telling the story, Duggan's fighting this guy, and he's really stout, but this guy is 6'7", 300 pounds, kind of got the drop on him, and it looks like he's almost, gonna beat him. Jake Roberts I need to look for something to beat this guy up, and then he juts his hand out, but gets his thumb, and the guy bites down on his thumb. But then Duggan says, "Now I got you." He punches him, I think, once or twice. Guy drops. And his thumb's still in the mouth, and he's just you get up, I owe you. It's I owe you more, and I'm going to beat your ass, because Duggan was just insane. I wish Duggan would have been on this panel. I really would have liked to have heard that. But I think, depending on when they were recording this, Duggan may have been going through his cancer treatment or treatments for an illness. I think his cancer returned, but he beat it, which is great. So maybe he didn't want to travel. I'm not sure. But yeah, then they got kicked out of the bar, and Duggan's all pissed. He went to beat that guy up, and there was still a drink, and he put his thumb in the drink, alcohol drink, just to cauterize it and everything. And they went on, because of course they fucking did. And then when the cops arrived, they were like, well, shit, we better go. And then Watts did have his enemies. They told the story about Jerry Brown, who was the former partner of Buddy Roberts. Yes, the third member of the Freebirds. And that, well, let's just say that Jerry Brown didn't like, the way Watts was treating him, this kind of stuff. And he sent a clock to Watts' house after the cops told him to leave, implying it could be a bomb. And then he decided to take some pot shots at the house. One or two shots got really close to Watts' daughter. Well, Watts is a cowboy, and on a steel horse he rides, and he's got a shotgun, and you're going to be wanted dead and not alive. And he had that shotgun. He was going to do this. JR told this story. And who knows what did or didn't happen. Do I believe that Bill Watts would have been bold enough or angry enough to put a shotgun in somebody's mouth that threatened and almost shot his daughter? Yes. Because Watts is insane. And then there you go. That was pretty good. And how personal issues draw money, going back to the Memphis episode. DiBiase starred Mid-South and went to Ernie Ladd at one point and said, I'm doing good as babyface, but I'd like to turn heel. And Ernie's like, I think that's a great idea. Still love the Ernie Ladd quote, Bundy, you big fat piece of shit. Yeah, we bring other guys in here to get you over, and what do? You dumb yourself out of position. Good old Ernie Ladd. It's a terrible Ernie Ladd impression. I am so sorry, but I couldn't help it. Anyway, so the way they did this heel turn is Ted DiBiase did something where there was a match he was having, and he ran his hand to the post on accident, so he had a cast on it. He had a cast, and he had a glove to protect himself. But he wanted to keep working because he's just that tough. And then he faced JYD for, I believe it was the North American Championship, if I remember right. That's what the championship was in Mid-South. And he ends up, at one point during the fracas, gets a piece of lead, puts it in the glove. Boom. One shot. 1, 2, 3. And there you go. JYD timbered. DiBiase covered him. New champion. Fans were pissed. They were ready to rip DiBiase apart. He said, I can't take my own car to this venue or it will end up on blocks and I will probably end up, dead. Like, that's just how insane they were. And then they did the Stagger Lee thing after there was a loser leave town like tag match. And it was Stagger Lee. It was JYD in a mask with Stagger Lee on in the bodysuit. It was obvious that it was him, and the way they got around it is Bill Watts said, we don't send these checks to their addresses. We don't know all this, so there's a P.O. box. If you don't know who he is, then I don't know who he is. There's a little more verbiage, but it was something along those lines. You got to remove the mask to prove it's him, and then we'll get rid of him. And he couldn't do it because it was really good television. Leroy McGuirk was mentioned. He owned the territory before Watts, especially Oklahoma. And he was blind. And he did color commentary. That was weird. He lost vision in one of his eyes when he was a kid. Still wrestled, and that's just how tough he was. And then I think lost the other one in 51. I think they said. So he wasn't wrestling. He was promoting. I do remember a story that Bill Watts told. It was the Soul of Wrestling, Legends of Wrestling episode. And he had mentioned about how Leroy McGuirk was blind, had those old time thing, talking about the Super Bowl or the Superdome. And it was two, was there Ernie Ladd and Ray Candy? I'm trying to think. It was two African-American men in the first main event of the Super Bowl. Well, Leroy threw out the N-word a whole lot, and I think Dusty even said, because Ernie Ladd had come in. And said, well, he didn't say anything, he just sat down. And then he talked about, the two people in the event, and Dusty said, you lied and told them they were white, didn't you? Good old Dusty. But anyway, back to the show. Ted DiBiase dated Leroy McGuirk's daughter, who actually was Mike McGuirk. Yes, that was her name. She was a ring announcer in WWE. Didn't last necessarily that long. I wonder if you can guess what Vince did. What Vince allegedly did. But Leroy McGuirk, okay. He found out that Ted was dating his daughter. Said he was going to kill Ted. Said, JR, you need to help me do this. You need to help me do this because I'm blind. I'm going to have you bring him into the hotel and I'm going to blow him away. Well, JR is panicked and he's calling Watts and saying, I'm going to be an accomplice to murder. We need to do something about this. Hey, Ted, don't do this. And don't go near Leroy if you can. Or if you come with me, don't say anything around Leroy because then that way he won't shoot you. A blind color commentator. But anyway, Leroy had all planned out. Well, Bill Watts said he would take care of Leroy, and I think it was like the last you saw of Leroy. Not the last that he saw of you because he couldn't see because he was blind. Ted and I guess Mike didn't work out all that long as far as dating. And then there was a Muhammad Ali piece. Jake Roberts was talking about really wanting to make this work with Muhammad Ali because this is fresh off of him appearing at WrestleMania 1. It was June 1st, 1985 in the Superdome. And there was a guy named Snowman that apparently was an accurate name. He looked great, but that was it. But Snowman, by the way, in case if you're wondering, Roberts had taken some punches from Ali, and then John Nord, who would later become the Berserker Husk. God, it's so weird. But he flew like crazy. Well, Jake Roberts took punches, and it wasn't that he wasn't selling. It's just he took them. He wanted to, feed Ali, but he also wanted to help him because Ali, unfortunately, by that point was really starting to have his, the Parkinson's was starting to set in. You could tell. Just of age, all that, and injuries, and just the fact he was a boxer, and as great as he was, he still took punishment, and the human body can only take so much. Watts was pissed because he didn't fly, Roberts didn't fly enough for him, but Ali puts him over and says, nah, you did good. You did good. And next week, I would like to say, is going to be the Vince McMahon, The 9 Lives of Vince McMahon. That's going to be a 2-hour documentary on Vice. I will likely record that and watch it at some point. Because I got a weird work schedule next week. I'm going to be working a lot of hours, and I don't think I'm going to have a chance to watch that. Or I don't think I'm going to have a chance to watch it right after I review something else. And also, I'm going to be tired. So anyway, the ribs sometimes got out of control. They did show quick footage of Cornette getting his face smashed in a cake by the Rock and Roll Express. And the travel was ridiculous. Buddy Roberts liked to do jokes about piss. He pissed in a beer bottle at one point and handed it, and Terry Gordy tried to drink it and then realized it was piss and spit it all up and said he was going to get even. And they did get even because Buddy Roberts flew back on Bill Watts' jet. They decided, okay, we're going to get revenge. By they, I mean Gordy. And what happened is him and Michael Hayes, they were doing whatever. Gordy was breaking eggs, shitting, pissing in that bag. He was doing everything. It was everything that Buddy had. And then they found roadkill, like a dead possum that had been dead for a while, and put it in there. And it was so nasty by the time they got to the arena or the venue or wherever they were shooting or having the show. The fans were gagging because Buddy wore the tights that had all the shit on it, that had that smell. Making the fans gag, making the boys gag. It was insane. You don't want to piss off Terry Gordy. Or at least you didn't want to before the year 2000, 2002. Real shame about Terry Gordy. But yeah, those ribs got out of control. Anyway, so then the death of the territories, Vince swallowing up all this stuff. They rebranded the UWF. That didn't work. The funniest part, though, was the story about all the NWA promoters wanting to get together and kill Vince McMahon. And JR was in a toilet stall and actually got his feet up because he didn't want to be an accomplice to this and didn't want people to see that he was in the bathroom hearing this. Bill Watts is like, no, these guys are nuts. We're not going to do that. He may not like what Vince was doing. He's like, no, this is stupid. And then they rebrand the UWF. That doesn't work because of the oil bust in the South. And he sold to Crockett, and that's pretty much it. Mid-South Wrestling left a hell of a goddamn legacy. It really rose high and really rose fast, but then it fell fast. Had the oil bust not happened, I still don't think that it would have lasted much past 89, 90, because all the talent was leaving. Vince was buying up the talent, offering them big contracts and all that, but Mid-South Wrestling did leave a hell of a legacy. Just a rebranding of the UWF, I don't think would have worked even if, again, said oil bust hadn't happened. That being said, that is the end of Tales from the Territory Season 1. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.